let's talk about another light heavyweight fight, right? Kennedy Nzechukwu and Danilo Marques. Now, very different styles of fights. And the thing with Danilo, I'm going to start with Danilo because he's got some interesting stats that I just can't get over. You know, he's 2-0 in the UFC, but if I was a fighter in the UFC, I gotta say Kadesik Brigimov and Mike Rodriguez would be the two guys I would be very open to looking into fighting, right? You have to assume that these guys are kind of those fringe style fighters. I think Ibrahimov has not found very good success in the UFC. He has struggled with guys who can really throw well and even work it to the ground if they need to. Mike Rodriguez, they don't call him that nickname for no reason. His pace is slow. He is very slow, and he likes to pick his shots, and he can knock guys out. But you know, we saw him really impress in the Dana White Contender Series, and then struggle with a guy like Danilo Marques. Now, this is the best stat I can ever come across when it comes to a grappler. You know, the guy has an 88% striking accuracy. Now, what do I love about that? 28 of those strikes are from the ground. 27 of them came on Mikey Rodriguez. And the guy is only 17 for 22 in distance strikes. The guy has fought almost 25 minutes in the UFC and has 22 thrown strikes with 17 landed. To put that in perspective, I want you to think about the current UFC fan. Everybody likes to call them casuals, but the current UFC fan watching a 25-minute fight as a main event, and only 17 punches are landed by an opponent. That tells you that not only did a guy not finish, but there's a chance that this man is sitting there and just either taking blows or they're not really doing much. Very Damian Maia, Anderson Silva-esque, if you ask me. But that's where I think that he's going to have to, you know, game plan wise, he's not hiding anything. This is a get it to the ground as quickly as possible and just octopus a man absolutely to death. That is his game plan. His striking is there, and it's going to help him set things up. But then we get into a guy like Kennedy, where I think the striking is going to be absolutely absurdly in his favor. There's just no way you can say that. His toughest loss is easily the Paul Craig fight, where he was actually winning that fight, in my opinion. Then he gets taken down, he gets sloppy, and just like Jamal Hill, too much confidence to stand and ride there, or to stay and ride and maybe not want to jerk things out too quickly, but he got tapped so quickly within a minute, right? That's why Paul Craig is such a rich man in the UFC. The guy's performances deserve bonuses every single time, win or lose. You know, fight of the night or performance bonus. It doesn't matter with him. But I think Kennedy's learned a lot from that fight, because you look at the way he's approached things after that. The cool thing about him that I really, really like is not only did he find out about this fight 2 to 3 weeks ago, but the guy's an actual, like, marathon runner. He made the joke in the media day that he doesn't actually sign up for these formal marathons and stuff like that. But just for fun, the guy goes out and runs 25 to 30 miles. Now, putting that into perspective in a fight where you're now taking on a BJJ guy who very much does not like to throw and sells his takedowns to the point where he just knows he's going to get it sooner or later, this is a tough fight for Dillo. I think that 2-0 UFC record is very much going to stand its test of time right now, because Kennedy is so dominant in the fights that he does win. And you look at the Darko Stocic fight, so dominant, may have lost the round, but man, he just brings it. He defends takedowns fairly well. I think that people have tried so hard to take him down, and even with that, he's kept a pretty solid takedown defense with 78%. So that's where, for me, it's just like you chalk up a guy who throws and lands over 5 strikes per minute versus a guy who can barely crack 2 in 2 UFC fights. It's like, if this fight does not get to the ground, it's very tough to see Kennedy losing this fight. You want to talk about the Carlos Ulberg fight. Ulberg, you know, replacing Alan Jouban as the model in the UFC, if you will. But boy, did that face get roughed up. I think that he was very much excited for his UFC debut, especially after that huge Dana White Contender Series showing. But then, first round, after throwing and eating and throwing and eating, the marathon runner in Kennedy just came to play, man. That second round was all him. I think that you look at the way that Ulberg was eating those strikes, it seemed like he was maybe not out a little bit earlier in the fight, but he was definitely on his last legs for a good portion of that second round. And so when you look at the body of work, when you look at the skills of Kennedy, I really believe that Ulberg fight put him on the map as a guy who shouldn't be, underrated too much and should even be considered as a favorite in a lot of fights. Paul Craig is the biggest, disappointment in his career. And Paul Craig just came out and dismantled one of the biggest prospects in the division in Jamal Hill, and is most likely looking at a top 5 opponent in the next fight. So I really like Kennedy. I think he's got a great head on his shoulders. I love the positive attitude. His media day is absolutely phenomenal if you want to go check it out. So I'm going to jump right into these lines here. Danilo Marques opened as a minus 133 favorite. And this is very reminiscent of last week. So Marques, minus 133 favorite. Kennedy, plus 105 dog. Switch those boys up. Danilo is now coming in as a plus 105, plus 110 dog, with Kennedy now getting as high as minus 140 in some places. So I think I'm bang on with this one. I expected Kennedy to be a favorite here, not by much, because I do believe that Danilo Marques' game is one of those ones where when you're a picker or better, whatever you want to say, that's the kind of guy that people underrate drastically. And that's why you're seeing lines where he actually opened as a favorite because of how good that ground game is, especially in the MMA world. And then now with, some of the pundits and some of the early, layers getting Kennedy at a plus 105, that shifted very quickly. But all in all, very underrated fight. Great fight to kick off the main card. And